I swear, I said this video is only gonna be 10 minutes long. How long is this video? I talk too much. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on this YouTube video. My name is Michelle and welcome to my channel called Michelle the Mystic. So today's video is going to be all about coming out of the spiritual closet. What does that mean? What does it even mean to be in a spiritual closet in the first place? I'm sure if you clicked on this video, you are already interested and kind of know what that is and know what I'm talking about. But for those who don't, we're going to go into a little bit of details on what is a spiritual closet. I'm going to share with you guys my personal story in my spiritual awakening and being in the spiritual closet for quite some time, several months, how I uncovered and got out of the spiritual closet to my close family and friends, and then we're going to talk about techniques and ways for you guys to do that as well if you are interested in that. So I figured this would be a really interesting video because there are not a lot of people talking about this on social media or on the internet, and I figured that I could provide some valuable insight for people who are scared to share their spirituality with others. So first and foremost, of what is a spiritual closet? Essentially, a spiritual closet is basically, you've probably undergone a spiritual awakening or a spiritual journey in which a lot of things have happened to you. It can be very triggering, it can be very crazy and wild, the things that you're experiencing. Basically, when you go through a spiritual awakening, you stop functioning as like your old self or the version of you that lived before, and your entire paradigm shifts. Your reality and your understanding of the world and the universe completely shifts. And after this happens, there is no going back. And so a lot of people will dive straight into spirituality, into all things mystical, metaphysical. When people are going through their spiritual awakening, a lot of crazy experiences are happening to them, and people might be very confused by this. This might create a lot of desire to share with people what's going on in your life, things that you're learning when you're breaking down barriers, you're understanding different parts of yourself, learning how to develop your psychic abilities, learning all about witchcraft or the elements or Mother Nature or spirituality or extraterrestrials or whatever. Everything is connected, learning about angels, learning about spirit guides, meditation, yoga. All of these things are spiritual, and we want to learn more about them, and then we want to share them with other people. But what exactly a spiritual closet is when people are going through these experiences and learning all these things, beginning to uncover who they are, potentially doing a lot of shadow work, healing trauma and past experiences. They're going through a lot of emotional turmoil. They're figuring out who they are, releasing the old, trusting the universe, all of these things. And on top of that, they are going out into the world, experiencing the 3D matrix or whatever, and trying to figure out how to operate and still live as a normal human and communicate with other people. So typically what happens is when people are going through a spiritual awakening, it's just like so isolating. It feels like no one on planet Earth can actually understand anything about you, and you don't want to share it a lot of times, even though it's super cool and awesome and exciting. You're like, this is fantastic. I want to share it, but I'm scared. And that's essentially what a spiritual closet is that you feel a lot of fear. You might be in a lack mentality or a lack mindset, or just fear-based in mindset in general, that you might get judged or persecuted or whatever, or fired from your job or something if you voice your spiritual opinions that are not congruent with a lot of other people. Your family and friends might think that you're crazy. They might discredit you. They might not trust you anymore. There's a lot of like small nuances that go with understanding your true spiritual nature, and especially if that doesn't conform to religion. And if you're interested in about the difference between spirituality and religion, go check out my last video on, oh no, not the last video, but 2 videos ago, I did a video on spirituality and religion, and I talk all about that kind of stuff. So go check that out if you're interested. So essentially, a spiritual closet is when you purposefully isolate this part of yourself that is becoming more spiritual in nature. Once you fully adopt and you start practicing and understanding that you are a spiritual being, and this is not just like some type of phase or something that you're growing into, it's becoming part of who you are and what you value as your spiritual side. When you start to develop that and understand that, you might be afraid to share that with other people based on what they might think of you, and that's essentially putting yourself in a very isolating position thinking that no one else on planet Earth could understand me, thinking that the only way that I can break the ice with people and tell them about my new life, if people are asking me, how are you doing? I might lie to them or cover up the fact that I'm going through a lot spiritually because it might be uncomfortable to bring up to people, to family and friends that might not share the same experiences. And so thinking that way puts yourself in a closet as if you need to break the ice and tell people, come out to them and say, hey, I no longer believe in these things that you think I believe, and I want to correct the version of you that lives inside your mind as to the correct version of me that I am today. And it's honestly a lot of responsibility when you think about it that way, and you don't have to go about it that way. You don't have to make this huge, beautiful announcement to the world and to your family and friends that, hey, like, I am much more spiritually different than you guys, and I want you to respect that. All of this about coming out of the spiritual closet is essentially you want to be seen and you want to be heard and understood for the new values that you've adopted, for the experiences that you've had, regardless of if other people have experienced them themselves. And what's really difficult in terms of spirituality is a lot of these things that we experience in meditations, in yoga, whatever experience you might have, metaphysical or mystical, a lot of people, especially psychic abilities, will discredit that. And that is what is the biggest fear that drives coming out of the spiritual closet and truly stepping into your power and understanding that you are a spiritual being. If you are afraid to come out and tell people, hey, this is who I am now, I'm not ever going to go back to the same person I was, I'm completely different now, and I'd like you to respect that and make me feel seen. So for me, this is kind of an interesting topic because I was in the spiritual closet for quite a while, and the fact that I am here today making videos in my room so openly talking about my spiritual beliefs is something that I never would have dreamt of in a million years. I'm a very, very private person. I don't share a lot with people outside of my circle. Even with my family and friends, they find it hard to keep up to me, not because I disclose or I don't disclose information to them. It's just I'm very private in the things that I like to do. And so for me, unfortunately, the first phase of my real spiritual awakening was actually a dark night of the soul, which I did not realize it was at the time, but basically a dark night of the soul is a extensive period of healing and just not great feelings, going through a lot of emotional trauma, trying to understand what happened in your life, trying to reprogram your mind for passion, for love, trying to connect with spirituality and all those things. But I was going through, something happened in my life that triggered me to get into the dark night of the soul, where I was just doing an intense amount of healing from my old version of myself, healing my confidence, healing who I am, trying to dive and step into the new version of myself I want to create, trying to figure out how to envision a new life for myself and create that for myself. So it was just a really, honestly, troubling time, and that lasted up until, I would say, August of this year. So quite a while, all of the beginning of the almost the entirety of where we are in 2021. I had the dark night of the soul, and I was going through a lot of healing, and in that time, several months in, is when I started to really develop and hone into my spirituality. I was doing practices every single day, really diving deep in meditation, experiencing things, connecting with spirit, communicating with my spirit guides and angels and ancestors. And I just got so many intense callings. I got visions in my meditation of a specific family member, my brother, and I just felt this intuitive knowing, intuitive calling that I needed to tell him. I needed to call him up one day and share almost everything that had happened to me on this journey. And I sat with that feeling, knowing that I needed to call him, knowing that I needed to reach out. And he was the first person that I ever told about any of this. And I went into very specific details with him. I didn't even cover all of it. And it was about a 4 or 5 hour phone conversation where I literally was just telling him, I was like, I prefaced it by saying, hey, I need to talk to you about something really serious. I would just appreciate it if you sat and listened. We can talk and ask questions later. So basically, I was really scared to do this because my view of him, my brother, my older brother, was just more religious and more conservative. So I was very confused as to why I needed to talk to him specifically. But now knowing that he really triggered a the next phase in my spiritual journey, which was allowing me to invite other people into it, sharing my space, and really unblocking my throat chakra, stepping into who I am, being able to speak and communicate and be a messenger for spirit, which is exactly what I'm doing on this platform. So I had a phone conversation with my older brother, and I was so amazed at how well it was received. He did not make me feel crazy or make me upset or make me cry. We had just a genuine, full-blown conversation about all these things, and he was very interested and was encouraging to me, and honestly, it brought our relationship closer. That was my first thing, is I had an intuitive calling to reach out to somebody specifically. So after this first encounter, I felt a little bit more called to share it with close family and friends. If the opportunity presented itself, I wasn't going to lie. So I did share what I was doing on YouTube, some of my goals and aspirations, some of my more spiritual beliefs, had conversations with some of my friends about what they believe, opened that door of communication between other people in my life, and it was really just pleasing to know that I had that option to talk to people and I wouldn't be judged by it. And then slowly I began to understand that I can talk to my parents, and I would sort of casually drop some information with conversations with my parents, like my mom or my dad. I would be like, yeah, I meditated today and the angels told me to do this. And if my mom asked me to pray for somebody, I would say, yes, I'll pray for them. My angels love when I pray. And we would have small conversations about spiritual beings, about connecting, about praying, about angels, and all that kind of stuff. And it made me feel a little bit more safe. Also during this time, I really dived deep into meditation, like I said, and I was practicing every single day. And the meditation that I practice is Sudarshan Kriya Yoga, which I mentioned in some of my other videos, but this is a very heavy breathwork meditation. And honestly, I was so scared. I lived with a roommate and I was just like, hey, dude, like, I do this breath work in the morning, I do this meditation in the morning, please don't think it's weird. And she was totally fine with it. She was like, that's okay, I don't care. But honestly, I would get so self-conscious, especially when I would chant or when I would breathe really deeply or loudly, that I literally would go sit in my closet so that she couldn't hear me, or the sound would be muffled. Like, that's how afraid I was that anybody would really know or understand. Or I just thought she thought it was so weird that I was like doing this heavy breath work in the morning before work, or I would wait for the air conditioning to turn on so that it was too loud so she couldn't hear it. Like, these small things you don't realize make an impact on the way that you perceive your spirituality, which is why it's so key to get out of this mentality and why it's so key to get out of the spiritual closet, because we don't want you to stay there forever. Part of it is sharing your truth, sharing your knowledge, and lighting the world up. The world needs your light. So I'm just trying to share my story, but I literally actually had moments where I was in my closet doing spirituality stuff and like doing spiritual stuff and meditating because I was too afraid of other people and what they might think. Also in this time, I was buying a lot of crystals and I was buying some tarot decks, and I would actually just hide them. Like, I would put them in my drawers. I wouldn't want my my roommate to see it. She would come into my room a couple times and see me using things, or like pick up my crystals and ask me some questions, and I felt so uncomfortable to talk to her about this because I just knew that she wasn't a person who would understand that. And not to downplay her at all, but it's just like, a lot of times when you know people are not receptive, you just don't want to share the things that light you up. Like, these things make me so happy and make me feel so alive. And so if somebody comes in and starts questioning and making fun of it, I don't really want to be around that person, you know? So all of these things were happening for me. But like I said, I slowly started to reach out to other people, but basically I followed my intuition whenever it told me to do something. Whenever I would be randomly doing something or not even thinking of anything at all, and I would get a feeling or a thought to call somebody, talk to them specifically, or say something to somebody, I would just do it. Because in that moment, I know that I wasn't the one who was talking me through this. I wasn't the one who was telling me to do this. This wasn't my own idea. This was my higher self telling me that this was a good idea and it's safe to do it. And we're going to support you on the journey, and this will help you. So So, honestly, the advice that I have here for how to come out of the spiritual closet is not like a step-by-step kind of thing. It's based off of what you intuitively feel. But first and foremost, I would say listen to your intuition. If you are truly not comfortable and not ready, then just slow down and stay isolated, stay where you are at, and your spirit guides and your intuition will communicate with you when you feel ready, and they will try to push you to get out of your comfort zone. If you just feel completely unready and so scared, then maybe just wait a little bit. But if the idea is mulling in your mind, if you keep getting this calling and nagging feeling, that's usually your intuition and your higher self and your spirit guides telling you that this is something that you need to do for your own personal growth. And the outcome might actually shock you. It might be really good for you. So go ahead, take that sort of leap of faith, trust the universe when these things come up in your intuition and in your experience. So like I shared in my story, I would recommend starting small with somebody who you can trust, somebody who you know will not ridicule you and will listen and be kind and understanding of your thoughts and your feelings and your experiences. And even if you share with just one person, you don't have to tell them every single detail about what's happened to you. You can be vague, you can brush over parts, you can be specific in other parts. You don't have to tell everything that's happened. Some things are very personal and you might not want to share those things, but just knowing that you can share even the vague things that have happened to you, even just your bigger mindset shifts and perspectives, a really good place to start. At the end of the day, a lot of people don't care and they might make fun of you. They might be like, "Ooh, I don't believe you." But if you truly believe it in your soul and if you truly have experiences that back that up, nothing can actually impact you and nothing can actually make you feel small anymore. Getting out of the spiritual closet is all about owning up to who you are and owning up to your spiritual nature and finally taking space and having a voice and voicing what you want to say about your spirituality and the truths about the world, because we're all called to do things as spiritual people for a reason. Also, some things to keep in mind is that after we've had these awakenings and these ascensions or, a spiritual journey in general, it's really, really common for us to want to share these with other people. But a lot of people in society today have not undergone that, and they probably will, or maybe they won't. What I'm trying to say here is that each person has a mission and a contract here for their life, and some people are not meant to awaken. Some people are only meant to awaken in a certain degree. So what I mean by that is to awaken to a religion and practice that religion. That's totally okay if it doesn't look the same way as your journey. But there are some people who are called to awaken, be teachers, be guides, and you can't really do that. You can't force everybody to awaken. You can't force ideas onto people. So sharing is different from forcing ideas onto people. In my opinion, forcing ideas onto people is more like religion instead of spirituality. Spirituality is kind of like a take it as it is. It's your journey, your thing. And if you want to share it with other people, that's cool. But understand that not everyone is going to be spiritual in nature. Not everyone's going to understand you because they haven't had those experiences, and that's okay. So don't try to force things. Take the pressure off of yourself from making everything after your awakening and talking to people. Don't make yourself feel like a fraud for not bringing up spirituality. Like, if people ask you how you're doing and you automatically think that you have to talk about all the spiritual stuff and the shadow work that you've been dealing with and the healing that you've been dealing with, you can, but don't make everything spiritual in nature. You can still have friends that you connect with just in different areas of your life that are not spiritual, and that's completely okay. If people want to know more about that, investigate that, don't hide that from them, because that's all about getting out of the spiritual closet. If you're hiding things from people, keeping things from people for the sake of keeping peace for relationships or friendships, then those are probably not going to work out in general. But if you understand that you don't have to make things all about spirituality all the time, that takes a lot of pressure off of yourself from just acting and behaving in a certain way. A lot of times we go through these awakenings and these experiences and we think that I have to be authentic to who I am now, and who I am is a spiritual person and spiritual being, so everything I do is spiritual in nature. And yes, that is true, but in our world today, we are surrounded by physical material things, and we can't just make things all abstract and all in our heads all the time. So understanding that there's just this huge balance that you need to incorporate into your life when you're thinking about spirituality, pick and choose your battles, and when it comes to who you talk to, who you share your things with, protect your energy, all that kind of stuff. But what I really just wanted to say here was that you don't have to always talk about spiritual things to be a spiritual being and to honor your spiritual awakening or your process. That's all I'm saying. You can still have authentic, genuine connections with people and share your stories when you feel called to. Honestly, what I say with this, coming out of the spiritual closet, is all about listening to your intuition, because if you can't understand and tap into your intuition, you're not going to know what's right for you. You're not going to know what's wrong for you. You're not going to know who to talk to about certain things, and that might get you into some sticky situations, okay? So if you're interested in learning more about your psychic abilities and your intuition, I have a couple other videos that I've made similar to those things where I talk about that. Also, understanding your energy, protecting your energy. I made a video on energy and your chakras. So please do check out my channel if you are interested in any of those things. So thank you again for clicking on this video. I appreciated it so much. I hope that you enjoyed this video, enjoyed my story, and resonated with it or learned something new. If you do enjoy my content or me, please subscribe to my channel because I am trying to grow my community. I am very new on here. If you like this video, please like it. And if you want to share with other people that might resonate with it, please do that as well. I appreciate it so much, and thank you again. I hope you guys come back for more.